But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo!
Hello, everybody. This is the local pundit, and I am Paddy Power. And today we have a very special guest on board. We have Andy Morrell, and we are going to have a great show and interview with himself. We have lots of questions from our community in the Discord, and it is something special for you guys. Big interview, famous Wrexham star. And we'll see how it goes, see how much time he is and how much we can get covered, because I do have a lot to cover. So we'll bring him in straight away and say hi. Hello, Andy. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So I've done a quick intro, and I'll read through some notes. Stop me if any of this is wrong, because I can't guarantee there isn't mistakes out there. Okay, so born Doncaster, England. That is roughly 122 miles, 2 hours, 43 minutes from Wrexham. You are a striker, or were striker. 359 appearances, 96 goals. Played for Wrexham, Coventry, Blackpool and Bury, among a few others. You played for Wrexham in between 98 and 2003. 109 appearances and 40 goals. You were coached by the great Ian Rush. And then one of your biggest years for us, at least, 2002 to 2003, you scored 34 league goals in 45 games, playing alongside Lee Trundle, and you were the top scorer across all 4 divisions. Correct so far?
You're all good. Keep going.
All good.
Sounds good.
Okay. To me. Okay. Then you went away to a couple of other clubs, played for them.
That's right.
And came back to us then in 2011 to 2014 as manager of Wrexham, player manager for some of it. In 2012-13 season, you led Wrexham to Wembley on 2 occasions. First against Grimsby Town in the FA Trophy final. Wrexham won the match on penalties, so we may talk about that certainly at some point. Finished 1-1 after extra time. The second occasion was a conference playoff final. Wrexham were beaten by fellow Welsh side Newport County. And maybe we can discuss the rivalry there, being beaten by a Welsh team.
Let's not talk about that one. I don't mind the trophy, but I'm not talking about that.
No problem. Okay, no problem at all. And now you have once again come back to Wrexham for the 24-25 season as a commentator. So you're back with Wrexham again.
That's right, the hat trick. Yeah, I'd been doing some of the co-coms pretty much since I left, really on and off with BBC Radio Wales. I was doing a fair few games. And then over COVID, we did a few streaming because we couldn't watch the games. People couldn't get into the games. So we did a bit of streaming, and I was invited on to do that. And then just in the summer, last year, I was doing probably 2 a month with the radio, because there's a fair few lads that do it with it, Barry Horn and Kev Ratcliffe, etc. And the media team came to me in the summer and said, would you want to do home and away games every game this season, and do our I Follow commentary with Mark and Mia, and be involved every game, and then on top of that was obviously this Match Day Live that they've introduced this year as a wraparound YouTube channel, and I couldn't turn it down. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those opportunities that I've just got to do it. I love doing it. I really enjoy the media side of it, and this was another stepping stone to just a little bit more insight into the production of the Match Day Live with Chris Maliband, who's amazing. Of how they do it and set it up, and also that live, trying to do it live off the bat is something that really intrigues me. And I've done a couple of bits like that for TNT with Wrexham games, but nothing as regular as I'm getting now. And I just love it. And being so close to the team and around the pitch and the games, it's as close as you can get to being involved, but without the stress of the win or loss at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? The sleepless nights, if you like, of losing the game. So it's I love it. Really do enjoy it, and yeah, they're going all right this year.
It's a really nice dynamic with yourself and Mia and Mark. I'm really enjoying it. Have you seen the clip up that is going around facing you two guys as the Elliott League goal went in?
I haven't seen it yet. No, is that on? Is it? Because
Yeah,
Mia's the one that's more animated than me, to
it
be
is.
fair. And
Yeah. It was aiming at Mia, but it was interesting watching the two of you because you were reacting to it as well,
yeah,
just off to the side a little bit. But yeah, it was focused more on Mia. But
yeah,
that little kind of vision. Oh, danger, danger! We can see it happening. But that
yeah.
was
Well,
really good.
well, if it had been a video in the Birmingham game, especially, Mia was like a jack in the box next to us because the goalmouth scrambles during that game. She was up and down every 5 minutes. You know, like it was so fun. It was like somebody was electrocuting her like every couple of minutes. But she's so animated and so into it. She's desperate for Wrexham to do well. And you can see from that the goal, her reaction. My memory serves me rightly. She was up and punching the air and all that. So yeah, she's doing fantastically well for somebody so young. She's got a wealth of experience and knowledge. Her knowledge and her research that she does for each game is really, really good. And yeah, she's a great voice to have. She doesn't say huge amounts, but what she does say is really significant when she does. And that's more probably me whining and waffling on and Mark the other side. So she has to try and find a gap if she can. But no, she's very good, and she's like you say, she's been a brilliant addition to the team.
Yeah, you both have certainly. So first up question, Josh, our fearless leader, always wants us to go for an origin story. So I mentioned there that you are from Doncaster.
Yep.
So maybe a little bit of an origin story. How did you get from Doncaster and end up in Wrexham, and what was the start of it all?
Well, how long have you got? Because it's quite a long story. Because I'm not a conventional type of guy. We normally you would go through academies, etc., and then 16 to 18 you do a scholarship, and then at 18 you sign your first pro contract. That wasn't me. I was nowhere near an academy. I grew up in the Midlands. My dad's a bank manager. He moved around a couple of times, but we grew up in the Midlands, and I was just playing semi-professional and really grassroots stuff up until I went to university. Went to University of Newcastle up north. Had 3 great years there, and it was just I was going to go and crack on and work and play as high as I could if I possibly could. And just where I was working, I had a chance meeting with one of the members who was a guy that worked on Sky Sports at the time, and he was best mates with Joey Jones and helping him write his autobiography. And he just said, why haven't you gone and tried to play? And I was like, because I've never had a chance. And he went, well, give me a minute. And he rang Joey, and it was literally about 3 or 4 days later, he came back and said, you can go in for a week's trial if you want. And that was it. It was basically, that's how it started. And they'd never seen me play. They'd never heard of me when I got a foot in the door. But sometimes you get a little slice of luck and you get your foot in the door, and it's up to you to go and kick it down. And I did that. I went in and I had a week's training, and they liked me. They asked me to play in a few reserve games for the rest of the year. But I was working full time at the same time, so I was mixing and matching my shifts in a gym that I was working in Leeds, and it just grew from there. And then I sort of asked at the end of the season whether I could go in for a full month on pre-season, and Brian Flynn was the manager, and he was like, yeah, well, we'd love to have you in. And then second day of that, I broke my cheekbone in a game for Wrexham. So back to work for another 8 weeks till it fixed. And then thankfully they said, yeah, come back in when you're fit. So I went back in, and it sort of just snowballed from there. It took about probably 9-10 months from that, just going in for a month.
Yeah.
And at the end of the month, Brian was very complimentary and said, you can carry on playing for the reserves and working like you did. And I just said, well, if I could have another month, I'll ditch work. I want to give this a go if I can get that opportunity. And I think he didn't want to make the decision for me, if you like, to quit work. And so I quit. And then 2 weeks into that following month, he offered me a 6-month deal till the end of the season. I think off the bravery of me, giving it a go, if you like. He saw how much I wanted it, and thankfully he gave me that deal, and it just sort of went from there. It still took me probably another 2 years to get into the first team properly, but I was very naive. I was dead enthusiastic, and I was really just wanting to learn. And because I was that little bit older, I felt I could take things on board quite quickly. After watching, playing with better players and training with better players, and like you said, had Ian Rush around. You can't help but try and learn off those types of people. And it just took a while. And then actually, the thing that helped me most was we unfortunately got relegated from League One to League Two in the 2001-2 season. And that gave the head striker left, and that gave me my opportunity to try and get in the team, and it sort of went from there, and we had a crazy year.
Okay. So it was dropping down that led to your massive resurgence as the number one striker and the goals.
Yeah, well, we had
was that the season, or was that another season?
No, that was
That was it, yeah.
It was basically, we had 2 or 3 strikers that were probably ahead of me. I was the striker that would go into the team for a couple of games to give the main striker a kick up the backside, and then if I didn't quite hit height, I was out and they were back in. Do you know what I mean? As a kick up the rear end, really, for the strikers. And when we got relegated, 2 of them left, which meant there was a big gap to fill, sort of thing. And Dennis Smith had then come in over Brian, and he was willing to run with me as one of the 4 main ones. And pretty much pre-season was open to go and see how you get on. And me and Trund started the season, and I scored in the first game of the season off my studs from about a yard. And they are the best ones, obviously. And that just gave me great belief and great confidence. And I just went on and just went off, and we had a very, very good team. We ended up getting promoted at the end of the year, but we had a very good team, and they put a lot of the chances on a plate, and I just happened to be in the right place and had one of those seasons.
Yeah. And is that immediately after that then you went to another team? You got Coventry, was it? Is that when that happened?
Yeah, but because I was a little bit older than my footballing CV would suggest, I was like 28 probably at that time. I just felt if I was ever going to go and play higher, and I was really ambitious to play as high as I could, then off the back of being top goal scorer in the country, I'd have to take that opportunity, I think.
Of course.
And Wrexham were a little bit slow in forthcoming with a contract for me. And I think if they'd come at Christmas, I probably would have signed it, but they didn't. And it just evolved, and then it was like there's 2 months left. If I can stay injury free, I'm probably going to have to take this opportunity. And then I heard that Coventry City were interested, and that was sort of back to where I grew up, or nearby. And huge club, just come out of the Premier League, and it was pretty much a no-brainer really for me to go and challenge myself and try and play at a higher level. And so that's how the move came about.
Yeah, so then I suppose you came back as manager. I actually
came back as a player. I came back as a
player.
Player.
Okay.
Under Dean Saunders, I came back as a player, and Dean Saunders was manager. And we had a year and a little bit, and then he left, and it was basically I was pretty much the oldest player at the club, and they just sort of said, "Would you take it for a couple of games just to look after
interim to the end of the season?"
Yeah, just caretaker for 3 games it was to start with.
Okay,
just take us for 3 games so we could sort it, because at the same time the trust were trying to get the club back off the owners, off Jeff Moss, and so it was a big transitional period, and the club were struggling a little bit. So I took it for 3 games, and then that rolled into take it for another 6 games. That was 9 games then, and then we did all right. And so then the trust had taken over by the end, and I'd sort of put them in a position where if they'd have got rid of me, there'd have probably been uproar, because we did really well in those 9 games. And so it just snowballed that we were able to take it on. And I had another 2.5 years or whatever as manager, and loved every minute of it. It was really, really interesting to see the other side of the game.
So would the highlight obviously have to be the your win against Grimsby Town for the trophy final?
Yeah. Well, we were the first it was Wrexham's first time at Wembley in their history, which was amazing. And so such a proud moment as a manager to I was able to obviously pick myself in the team, because that's what you do as a manager, right? But no, off the back of that, it was one, getting to Wembley first and foremost. The day was amazing. The conditions were ridiculous. It was freezing cold. All the Wrexham fans had been snowed in literally 3-4 days. Nothing to what you've probably hit in Finland and stuff, but 3 or 4 feet of snow is deep, and they were digging themselves out to get to. And we took 17, 18, 20,000 down with us, and we saw on the morning we went down a few days before, we saw what they'd done to get there and what they'd tried to achieve, and we just thought, we can't let these lads, this lot down now, because they've managed to get themselves down here. So, and we played a brilliant game. The lads really stepped up to the plate. The plan went exactly as we had hoped. We should have won in normal time. We should have won in extra time. But then when it goes to penalties, a bit of a lottery. But the pride that I have of that moment is so high, of just, you're not just as a player, but as a manager, you're leading a group to something that's never been done before at a club, and we managed to get over the line with the penalties, and the celebrations were decent. And those celebrations and that game, they live long in my memory. And so many times when you speak to fans, it's a memorable time for them as well, and you're just so pleased to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So we'll move on to some of the questions that we have.
Okay.
Right. So we've done the origin story. Next up, we have from Aaron Wheeler. Can you explain the offside rule?
Probably not. No.
No, sorry. That's actually a joke at a friend's expense. He's actually one of our he's one of our co-hosts. And he knows the offside rule.
It's okay. Made me do that. It's possible.
It's fine. Okay. Right, we'll kind of hit on transfer window and contracts and stuff like that, because obviously that is closing tonight. So it's kind of on topic. So some of the things that have been majorly discussed kind of on our Discord and everywhere else have been contract extensions during the season, and obviously buying in players. So first up, early extensions of Mullin and Lee. What's your understanding of giving out early extensions like that? Because there was a lot of time left on the contracts when it happened, and obviously we weren't sure where we were going to be. Is it because it was pre-Christmas and ultimately we're probably not going to go up, so keep everybody happy at that stage already? Or is it because they're talismans of the club and they wanted to release information? How do you see it from your manager's side?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit of everything that you said there. Okay. I think it's a good news stories. They've been 2 key players for the past 2.5 seasons, really key. And it's a statement to everybody that nobody's coming for our top men. We can keep them for as long as we want. And they're happy here as well, because they could have gone on, and I'm sure, and played higher, but they were happy and content. And the longer deals, I think, shows that players that like that we can keep. When I was managing, we struggled really badly because we were just one of those teams in the mix. But to then extend these contracts, they've done it again, haven't they, with Mendy? In January, they've just given him another year, and it's to the security for the player, so they know that their contract's not up at the end of the season in the rat race to find another club. But also, when you've got these players in the building, it's certainly easier to keep them in the building than it is to get new ones in. And what you can do then is, if you get these new players in that maybe take you to a next level, then because money is not really an object at Wrexham at the moment, we can afford to then go, right, well, you're free to go if you want to, but you're better to have them in the building than not. Does that make sense? You don't want to if Mendy leaves at the end of the season and Seb Revan gets an injury and McLean decides to go back to Ireland, you're in the market for a left back that's starting. One, you've got to find one that you like. Two, you've got to be able to get them out of the club, and it just takes time, and you just don't need that. You may as well have them in the building already and still go for that player. And when he does eventually come, you can get rid of the ones that are already in. Does that? And I hope that tries to make some sense of it.
Yeah, so that was kind of my next mention was going to be Mendy and Palmer, so that's covered.
Yeah.
As well. So Palmer would probably be the same situation. Is there also
what it also does is that if they find themselves in a situation that Palmer finds himself in now, which is the 7 strikers, and he's probably now, rather than first choice for the past 20 games, he's now 6th, something like that, 5th, 6th, and not going to play. He has a value though now. So if somebody wants to take him from us, they have to buy him. And so that extra contract extension gets a fee for him, because they'd probably wait till the summer and he'd go for nothing. But we might be able to get something for Ollie Palmer now if somebody comes in for him and takes him. It might not be huge, but it might cover some. It might just cover them extra that they've paid in that contract. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so balancing the idea of an extra year where we may not need the player, but we have to pay the wages if they don't go, versus the idea of keeping them happy. So kind of a follow-on question to that then, is there scenarios, or have you seen scenarios where when players haven't been given extensions and they're in their last year of contract, can it make their play worse? We can risk a year's wages to have someone sit on the bench or even second string.
I also think that the players and the type of players that Parkinson brings in, they wouldn't want to do that. So you've seen with James Jones, he's had 4 or 5 months sat watching, and he's gone now because they don't want to sit around. As a footballer, you don't want to just be sat earning your money. You want to be playing and earning your money. And that's certainly something that I think we'll probably see with Palmer. I think if he's not going to play, I think he will probably look to leave if he can. When you say, is there a detriment to not renewing these contracts? I think it can work in another way. They can really improve, because they know that if they don't play particularly well, they might not get a club at the end of the year, whether it's with Wrexham or not. If you're not playing well and your performances dip, then not necessarily going to get a club somewhere else, or the club at the level that you want, because why would they take a player that's not performing?
Yeah, very good point. Then one other contract that has come up for discussion lately has been Sam Dalby. So Sam obviously is out on loan. He is up in the summer, and he was allowed to remain on loan this second half of the season with what was stated as a contract offer on the table. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on that. Allowing him to remain on loan and increase his own value, which is kind of fine in one way, but then we're not gaining anything really from it. And we're also giving him the option of taking a contract at his time and choosing. Or that's how it seems anyway.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's
as a club decision.
It's a really tricky one, actually, because at the start of the season he wasn't going to play for us, so that's fine. He's got another year left, so he goes out on loan to get game time and to become a better player, and he's certainly done that. He's took that opportunity with both hands. Now, whether we felt, is he going to come back into Wrexham in January and do the same as he's been doing up in Scotland at the level that we are, and work in the same way that we want him to for our team? I don't know. And off the back of that, obviously the club has had Sam Smith and Jay Rodriguez in their minds as well. And so my question, if I'm Sam Dalby, was, if I come back, am I going to play? Because if I'm going to come back and not play, I may as well stay where I am, because I'm not going to gain anything from coming back, especially if you're going to go and get 2 new strikers. So what I'll do is I'll stay. And that Wrexham gone, well, there's another contract then, because that would make you worth something to us if we're able to extend it. But to be honest, if I'm Sam Dalby and the way that my season's gone, leave me out on loan. I'm over 24, so I'm going to be a free at the end of the season. If I can continue in the way that I'm going, I'll get a half decent club at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I don't need to sign for Wrexham, who, if I come back, I'm not guaranteed of playing. I might be 4th, 5th choice again. So why would I sign that? Does that make sense?
It does, and it has been mentioned though that Wrexham is a business, and you should be in the business of, making money and all the rest of it. Is there a case to say, from a business standpoint, not from a personal player standpoint, that like should Dalby have been told, sign the contract now, or you come back and we don't leave you out on loan? Make your decision. Do you want to be with Wrexham long term? Or do you want to sit? Why would we allow you to go and increase your value and just leave? Now, I know there's plenty of benefits in being nice and not being a harsh, horrible owner / club to maybe play for.
Yes.
So that's one side. But just the harsh side, is there a case for that?
I agree. Yes, there is a case for that. But I think you bring a player back, he's not happy. What could that do around the camp, the culture, if he's back unhappy, not sign the deal? I don't think you need that problem around the squad. There's plenty of other problems that are going to be going on, I'm sure, behind the scenes than you need an extra one. And also, Sam Dalby has been great. He's been great for Wrexham. He's done fantastically well. He's not moaned. He's cracked on when he wasn't playing. When he was called upon, he scored some really important goals. And so at some point as a manager, you've just got to think about them as well. And what that does is, like, I can look after him and make sure he's all right. And we've offered what we can. And it's up to Sam if whether he wants to sign it or not. But I think we've done all we can, as well as being thoughtful of his position as well. And that, if I think, eventually that might help us in signing somebody else, because they'll speak to Sam and they'll go, well, he looked after me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're fair with me. They're very fair with others. And that's, you might go, oh, well, I'll go there then because I know that they're going to treat me right.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of occasions where you can say that. You can now say Marriott, because he had his injury and came back, not totally firing yet. Maybe now has to sit the bench a little bit because of the injury, but he has been renewed on his contract. It may be only a year, but it gives time for him to prove himself once again once he's fit. Whereas his contract was up this summer, and if you're going by the financials and the business side of it, maybe he was an opportunity to let him sit on his contract and, have the option of a player to be removed in the summer if we go up or whatever. But of course, we didn't. So it's no bad thing. I'm not advocating we should be doing that. But it does show to other players that this is a place to come and work.
Yeah, and also he's proved to me that he's really good League One striker.
The first half of the season, absolutely.
He was our main guy. He was our go-to guy. Scored a brilliant goal first game of the season, and then just took off after that. And it was for a fortunate injury that he came out of the team. So I think he's shown he scores goals at this level. He's proved it in his history and his experience. I can see why we've gone and offered him another year, because if we are in this league next year, then he is a really, really top quality one of 5 strikers that will get us next year.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question I have here, we've covered it a little bit, but Palmer and Mullin to leave in the window. Now I'm not asking whether they will or not. We'll figure that out today. But more. Sorry, sound went off for a second. Okay, so more from the dynamic of players staying or going. As I said, we touched on it a little bit. So with Mullin signing his new long-term contract, I saw that as him deciding that he wants to have his future with Wrexham, and accepting the fact that, especially if we go up to Championship, he may be, the number 2, number 3, that he potentially is willing to sit on the bench for the coming years because he's extended his contract quite significantly. And obviously Palmer has gotten the extra year. But how does that dynamic work then with players do you find players will generally move because they want play time? Or are some players happy to sit and be the number 2, especially as they're a little bit older, coming to the end of their playing career and stuff like that? Can you speak on that as a manager and what you've come across, that dynamic?
Yeah, it's again, it's a really difficult balance to get one as a player. I can take it only from my experiences that because I was a little bit later into the game, I just wanted to play. And I didn't care what level that was. If I could play higher, brilliantly. But I had a year left on my contract at Coventry. I did pre-season. And then they came to me and said, listen, you're not going to play a lot this year. And so I ended up leaving because I wanted to go to a club where I was going to play and I was going to just rack up. And I wanted to say to my kids, listen, I've played 349 or whatever it was games in the Football League. I played 100, but I did all right out of the game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think memories like that are more important than the money, really. And I was always going to have to work afterwards anyway. So because of the money that we were on at those days. But this time, I think players are slightly different in their thinking, but I still think deep down they all want to play. They all want to play. So I don't think Mullin re-signing, I don't think there's a thought in his head that he's going to be number 2. He'll be number 1. He's just got to find that form from somewhere and find how he can get in the team. Because I think all the ones that we've brought in, they're slightly different to Paul Mullin. I think Sam Smith and Rodgers are different. I think Stephen Fletcher is different. Do you know what I mean? There's only really Marriott that I would say is similar to Mullin. So I still think he's got a big part to play. So I wouldn't be too hasty in trying to get rid of him. You talked about maybe in the window going and rumours and stuff. I wouldn't be looking to get rid of him if I was managing, put it that way.
Yeah, and to be clear, neither am I. I absolutely think he has a part to play. But it was just from my headspace with a long extension, knowing that potentially we're going up. And also like his family scenario and the fact that he dropped down so many levels to come to us. It was very much work-life balance, I think, for Mullin. That helped him come to us. So that's kind of what's leading me to the idea that maybe with us, he would be more comfortable taking that role if he has to.
But he's been brilliant. He's been insanely good for Wrexham, and the goals he scored have been fascinating and really good. But what it does do as well is, off his record, if he is 3rd, 4th choice for the next year and a half, say, we will still get money for him because of his record. We'll pay money for him. And so because he's got that length of contract, they will pay money for him. And there's plenty of teams out there who are desperate for a Paul Mullin.
And if he wanted to play first striker for a team, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. If he asked to go to, especially if he can find a club that is close to home and suits him in his other situation, I absolutely could see it happening. But it was interesting to read all the comments online about the potential of Mullin going. I don't think he will. I don't think that's happening. I know it was mentioned he has an injury and he's out. But at this time of the season, a lot of people seem to have injuries a couple of days before the window closes.
That's right. There's a lot of rumours and stuff.
Yeah,
it's not a great time of year. It's very difficult to manage those rumours. You can't say anything about it. We have to take it on face value that he's got a shin injury. He's having a scan this week and he's not right. Yeah. And we just have to deal with it when the fallout comes, whether he is injured or not. Hopefully, fingers crossed he's not. Hopefully he comes back into the team. Hopefully he comes back into the squad and starts scoring some goals, because we're desperately in need of a lift up that top end of the pitch, I think.
Yeah. And we will find out today which players do go out on loan or move to another club, because we haven't had a lot of outgoings so far. And as we record this, it's the morning of the final day. And no news has broken before we started the interview, as far as I'm aware. So a lot of that should happen during the day. So I'm interested to see who might go or go on loan.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I think they'll still be looking to bring another one in, I would have thought, as well. Maybe, I don't know where on the pitch, but they always look to strengthen. And what bringing a couple of players in does, it really lifts the group, because as a player, you see these lads coming in, especially Jay Rodriguez played in the Premier League, etc., played for England, especially somebody like that coming in, you have that pride in you to go, I'll show him I'm a good player. Do you know what I mean? So the standards lift straight away, just on the back of somebody walking in through the building. And so you're hoping that they have that lift, the whole group has that lift, and they sort of carry you through the next 3 or 4 months.
Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of the end of that set of questions. So I'm going to ask you for story time. Do you have a story from where you saw that the club had to actively push someone out? Or do you have a story of a player who absolutely refused to go? Either way, we don't need names or obviously anything like that. But have you any interesting story about either side of that coin?
I've never tried to get anybody out off the back of really trying to do your due diligence on the type of character that you bring in. There's been certainly players that have pushed to move and leave who we didn't want to because they were still adding stuff to our squad. But other clubs had more money than us and could pay for players to go. And our situation was at the time difficult to turn down any offers that would come in for players, and they were obviously going to go on to earn more elsewhere, and so it's very difficult to stop them going, even though they're contracted. You don't really want somebody in the building that's not happy. We had a centre midfielder called Lee Fowler, who was a very, very good player, and he's actually doing really well as a manager now at Flint. And he wasn't playing as much as he had played under Dean Saunders when I took over, and he was really unhappy with not being. And we were doing really well, and so the three in midfield were doing well, and so I couldn't get him in the team, and he just proper head loss. Other things going on off the pitch, comes in and literally a scrawled little piece of A3 paper with, I want to transfer. It is a written transfer request. I want out. And he knew as well that Fleetwood were interested and would pay him more money. And I think off the field as well as on the field, everything just culminated into him wanting to leave. And so I think we felt that as a club, it was best that he moved on. And unfortunately for us, Fleetwood ended up going up, and we didn't, in that season. And was that part of it? I don't know, but still, it was just the right decision that we had to take at the time. And some players, they didn't want to be at a club like Wrexham, and that's fine. It surprised me, but obviously money talks, doesn't it?
Obviously a very different dynamic today, with the idea that we're paying quite comfortable salaries. So maybe at least that's what's out in the discussion. I'm assuming a lot of players are not on as much as people are saying they're on. But I also believe it is fairly significant when you average it out and look at other teams and stuff like that. So it is a different dynamic then if you bring a player in on a higher level and then it doesn't work out. Like if you do a 4-year contract early and then 18 months, 2 years, all of a sudden they're out of the team and they're just not playing.
It is risk and reward, really, because every signing that you make is a risk. You don't never really know how. You can do all the background research, you can look at all the stats you want of minutes played and stuff, but he can come and walk through the door and do his ACL and you're done for a year. Do you know what I mean? And you just can't guarantee that they are going to be a success. Even I'm looking at Huddersfield at the moment, and they've spent 3 million in the window on strikers, and they are really struggling to score goals at the moment still. So even spending money doesn't guarantee that you're going to improve that part of the pitch or it's going to work. It's still a risk, but your odds are a little bit better, if you like, because you're going for better players. But I think long deals where we are now. When I was manager, we only did 1-year deals, max 2-year deals, because we couldn't afford to have that type of scenario happen where a player was just taking wages and not playing. But we're in a different stratosphere now.
Yeah.
Our budget is very good for the league. It would be one of the top 6, I would have thought. And if a player doesn't work, it's not as big a hit as it was when I was managing. If I brought a player in with a good wage that I was happy to play, if it didn't work out, it was a major, major problem.
Yeah. Okay, so next topic I have here is international versus local fan concerns. So obviously we're kind of an international fan base. You know, our local pundits, myself, Ken, Aaron, Josh, we're all over the globe. We have fans internationally now all over the globe. But first up, do you ever deep dive into the dark world of Red Passion and the comments boards where people complain about everything?
Yeah, nothing's ever right. Okay, yeah. No, I used to. When I first went to Wrexham, I was obviously really naive, really young in footballing terms, and I was interested and intrigued to see what people were saying about the club, players, etc. And it's a murky world, and social media these days is even murkier, if you like.
Yeah.
But I had like we said, a really decent season. But within that season, I was reading a bit of Red Passion to see what people were saying about the team, etc. And somebody said, I think I got 34 goals in a season. Well, Andy, you may as well take Morrell off if he scores. Whether it's the first minute, if he scores in the first minute, just take him off after, because he only scores 1 in any game. So if he scores in the first minute, you may as well take him off. And I just looked at that and I just thought, that's what we're dealing with, is 1 goal's not done. Hold on. So from that moment, I just went, I'm never going to read it again, because obviously it's never going to be enough. What you do is never going to be good enough. So that's when I sort of shifted to not reading it. So I sort of steer clear. I should maybe go back to it now, because it's not as close to the heart, do you know what I mean, about your playing career, I suppose, and how you're playing.
Well,
so
I wasn't on it back then, but I can probably guess it's no better than it was back then. So, okay, some concerns then. Right, the local fans are looking at ticket cost and availability for themselves to get in. They wanted more seating. We put up the temporary cop. Then the temporary cop got changed to add an extra £10 for a fan zone. That didn't go down very well. Currently, there is the 3-match ticket release, which has not gone down very well. And a lot of that obviously is not giving people advance notice. I think that was really poor. But then the 3-match release has been done in order to help more different fans get tickets, and not the same fans always getting the tickets. Then on the international side, we have to put up with iFollow, who are better lately. They're better lately. There have been problems in the past, but hopefully we're slowly getting over all of that. Club memberships, then they're quite expensive for an email that says happy birthday, and the chance of maybe getting 1 ticket when you fly over internationally, if you can make it. And then the cost of merchandising for international, which has been addressed lately, that in the future that'll be sorted. Along that lines, that's one of my pet peeves. I probably paid somewhere in the region of €120 for a jersey. So if you don't know, we get the jersey price plus the UK taxes plus £20 delivery to Finland, and then when it gets to Finland, I get hit with local taxes, custom taxes on top. So it gets a little ridiculous. I won't deep dive into that, but how do you think the club is balancing the needs of the internationals versus the needs of the locals? And should it or should it not be expected that the international fans are going to have to be looked after, because that's where they're driving the revenue forward? What some general ideas on?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant question and a really intriguing one, because I I think it's very difficult. I think the club at the moment are trying to find their way, if you like, and it's all new. And what they have done recently is they have put in high-profile positions right at the top of the club. So you've got a head of commercial now coming in. You've got Mike Williamson come in. I think there's a head of retail. I think there's a head of media. I think, but they're really top quality guys. And what I think they hope is that the filter down from them will sort all these sorts of problems. You know, the fan zone thing, I think they've admitted that they just got it wrong, the name of it, the cost of it, and they just set it wrong. And they've got to try these things, I think, and see, and it just didn't work. And so thankfully they've changed it, and hopefully we'll see a different thing move forward. What I would say is 10 years ago, the football club was in a better position than the football team, if that makes sense, to go for. We had the club, we had the training ground, we had a lot of really good things going on, but the team was in the National League and it wasn't very good. We didn't have a great deal of money. Now, I believe it's sort of switched. So the football team now is very good. We've got a lot of good things going on with the football team, and now the club are having to chase that down with catching up with ticketing and all the other different things. And unfortunately, it's just going to take time. Do you know what I mean? And merchandising and all that sort of stuff. We were getting 4,000 or 5,000 people at games in the National League 10 years ago. We're now got a multi-global fan base that we're trying to get merchandise out to, and the club want to take and really utilize that and make money off that, which is great. But we've got to appease everybody by getting it to them, and I don't think we're ready to get the stuff to them. Does that make sense? We're not in that. We haven't got the processes right yet, and so I think that they're trying to address them, but there's so much stuff to address that it's pretty much one thing comes on top of another, and it gets budged down in priority, and they're wading through it. But hopefully they're looking for more staff. They're trying to get people in, and that's why I think they've gone in at the top to try and go, right, you've got to sort that. You've got a little team. There's your budget for your team, for example, the commercial or the media. Go and sort that out. Off you go, sort of thing. Because also in the background bubbling along is stadium, is training ground, which is real basic for a club that's in League One and hoping to go up into the Championship without a training ground. That was the one sell I had when I was manager. I didn't have the money, but look where we're training. It's amazing. And that was the sell I had. But now we haven't got that. So there's so much stuff for the club to catch up on. It's just going to take time. And I think they're trying. They've just got a few things wrong at the moment.